What's happening, guys? Happy Sunday, and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, we are talking to our man, Casey Myers from the FF Dynasty. But also on this show is the first time in a month that me and my co-host are back together. So I'll start with Jerry. You know him better as the man of the hour and the man with the power. Jerry Sinclair, buddy, how you been?
I know. I think this is the longest gap that we've had in our, 6-7 years that we have been doing this thing.
Just over 7 for those keeping score at home.
Good God. Yeah. So I shit the bed for the first couple of weeks. Randy bailed on me, and then he was gone last week down in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So it's good to see you. I had to host last week. I'm a dreadful host. I give credit to both of you because you're both immaculate at it. I'll just sit in the back seat and chime in whenever I have to.
Yeah. Well, they say distance makes the heart grow fonder. So, sometimes some time apart is good for the relationship.
And that voice you hear is our man, Casey Myers from the FF Dynasty. So this is like a two-way. If you haven't seen them yet or heard them yet on Player Profiler, they are the newest partner podcast. That's what Jerry and I technically are. The guys from the Undroppables are. We have our own podcast. We have our own YouTube channel. We have our own audio feed. But then we also, subcontract, share our content with the folks at Player Profiler. And you're on like week number 2.
Yeah. Yep.
So what's going on with your guys' show? I listened to the one most recently, but tell our audience that maybe isn't yet your audience what's going on with the FF Dynasty.
Yeah, we are putting out a whole bunch of different content. We'll do some longer stuff that's an hour or so where it's a few topics and we're really getting in the weeds, and then we'll do shows that are 30 minutes with 6 or 7 topics where we're spitting out a lot more stuff at once. So bunch of different variations of the show. We got a YouTube channel that has all sorts of great graphics. We got an excellent editor and Jason, part of what we got going on at the FFD. But yeah, it's been great getting to know all the people at Player Profile, especially Matt and Theo, and shout out to John as well, who's helped us kind of get set up over there. So it's been cool. It's been good to see in that first show drop to see the numbers of kind of where you're regularly at, and then we saw all the Player Profiler people, so that was cool. Hopefully we'll retain some of y'all.
No, it's great, and I'm glad you mentioned the support team at Player Profiler, because of course we know the Podfather, of course we know Theo, Billy, all of the hosts, and they're all super, but the support people like John, like Nick, our new producer, and the graphics, like you guys have had the best logo in Dynasty Fantasy Football for the last forever. I think it's my personal favorite, and I really like ours.
Yeah.
But shout out to Brittany, who does all the thumbnails for the Dynasty WarZone. She does the work for Player Profiler. She's super. So again, shout out to all of those people behind the scenes. But we've got a packed show. We got 60 minutes of Dynasty goodness. So, and we have a good people, bad tweets. But first, we have to give you a little something from Underdog.
This episode is made possible by Underdog Fantasy, and Underdog Fantasy is the leader in best ball. When you go to join an Underdog Fantasy best ball draft, it fills very quickly, especially now. It's Best Ball Mania season, baby. Best Ball Mania 5. I can't believe they're at Best Ball Mania 5 already. $15 million in prizes. They're giving out $15 million with $1.5 million to first. Playing in best ball leagues makes you better. It helps train you on player value and strategy. And Underdog offers a lot more than just best ball contests. They offer pick'ems. My new favorite, the golf pick'ems. But they have the NBA pick'ems, baseball pick'ems going on throughout the offseason. Hit the pick'ems, back to best ball, hit the pick'ems. So use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. So they've increased the maximum deposit bonus. It was $100. Now it's up to $125. When you get the Underdog app, use promo code Underworld and go draft your ass off.
That's right. You go draft your ass off. Jerry, have you ever drafted your ass off?
Randy, you've seen 15 of my teams in the leagues we're in. You know damn well I haven't. I have nothing mediocre rosters up and down.
Mediocre rosters left and right. So, all right, we have a good people. We have bad tweets. Now, Jerry, it's been a little while since we've done good people, bad tweets, even without you.
Right. No, I watched every single one of your shows. You did awesome.
You get a little soft in your old age there? What's going on?
I don't know. But here's the thing about good people, bad tweets. It's kind of like Batman, like eventually the crime dries up because they understand there's a force there's a force out there that will come for you like the Batman. And that's what we've done. We've cleaned Twitter up, but occasionally you still get one worthy of good people, bad tweets. And this one is from a repeat performer.
He has made himself?
No, not the Podfather himself, but none other than David J. Galtieri. You might know him at Guru Fantasy World. And I don't know, this is so much good people, bad tweets. It's kind of an opinion. I don't think I agree, but I wanted to get the consensus of the room. And Mr. Galtieri said, friendly reminder that Brandon Aiyuk should be ranked ahead of Chris Olave in all fantasy formats. So all would include Dynasty. I'll start with our guest. Casey, what do you think when you hear Mr. Galtieri say that Aiyuk should be ranked ahead of Olave in every format?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, I got them a tier apart looking at my rankings. So, I there's a lot unknown with Brandon Aiyuk, right? I mean, we don't exactly know how this contract's going to play out. We don't know where he's going to end up. He could end up somewhere else, and it may be even better for him. San Fran's a great spot to be in, but I just feel like Olave has that, and not to take anything away from Aiyuk, but I feel like Olave's situation has really improved here. I feel like you're going to see him in motion. We went from one of the most stale offenses to one of the most going to be top 10 in motion. There's numbers out there that say Olave is one of the top 3-5 players when in motion of fantasy points per route run. So I think all those things are going to really jump at you. And we just, I think we're so quick that if Olave didn't come out and isn't the best receiver in the world, then he was a bust. And it's like, Olave's been really good with what's been around him the last 2 years. And I feel like we're about to see a jump. So I got him a tier ahead. How about you guys?
I'm going to give it to Jerry.
Listen, as the man that sits on the throne of anti-Chris Olave hype, what are we talking about? I mean, he's been in the league 2 years. He's had right around 1,100 yards. And we're going to talk about Brandon Aiyuk being better when Brandon Aiyuk is 2 years older. And in his first 2 years in the league, he had 700 and some yards.
Mm-hmm.
He had 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. But if you've paid attention at all, Debo was out for a vast majority of the season. And he was banged up even when he was out there. And if you haven't watched the Netflix series Receivers, please do. It's fucking awesome. But no, he's older. He's older. It took longer to break out. He's in year 4 before he finally did something that was even comparable to what Chris Olave did in his rookie season. And who's to say the Saints offense doesn't get exponentially better at some point in the future? He's a much more stable asset. He's been more productive early in his career than Brandon Aiyuk was. And Brandon Aiyuk has tons of competition.
Yeah.
What's Chris Olave got? The
Jawan Johnson.
Bone dust of Alvin Kamara. No, thank you.
Well, Shaheed and A.T. Perry.
Rashid Shaheed getting a lot of love. So we're going to get you Dana White. We haven't had Dana White in a while, but just so you know.
Let me tell you a couple of three things.
One, there was no bigger fader in the dynasty industry last year of Chris Olave than me. I didn't say he was going to be hot, wet garbage, but I didn't think he was going to be the wide receiver one points wise, in the top 12 in total scoring because of the exact thing that Casey said. That offense was stale. That offense was boring. That offense was about 1990s without the power running back. They just had like Alvin Kamara catching 97 passes in the flat, which is fine if you have Alvin Kamara, not fine if you're on Chris Olave. And Jerry and I both were extremely high on Brandon Aiyuk last year. Actually, in the one league Casey and I are in together, the Ultimate Dynasty Podcasters League, I traded for Aiyuk last year before the season, so I'm pro Aiyuk. But I think this may be your last chance. Now, you're not getting him cheap. We're going to talk about Dynasty trade targets here in just a couple of minutes. But this may be your last chance to get Chris Olave cheap because I think there's too much hype on Garrett Wilson. Not that I don't think that he can't deliver on that, but I think if there's anyone ready to springboard into that conversation with Jefferson and Chase and A.J. Brown, the dark horse to jump in that group is Chris Olave. That'd be a big jump. Casey, where do you have him in your rankings? Like 9, 10? Olave, that is?
Olave. Let's see here. Yeah, 9.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to ask him to jump 5 spots. So cut his ADP in half at the wide receiver position. It would take a big season, but in this Clint Kubiak offense, it's more than possible.
Yeah, I agree.
So nothing against Mr. Galtieri. You were wrong. What about in seasonal? I'll bounce because seasonal season, it's July. Training camp, teams start reporting in the next 7 to 14 days. From a seasonal perspective, maybe we have the occasional seasonal player stopping by here at Player Profiler. And who would you rather have on the season? Because for me, it's still Chris Olave. He's the clear number one non-Alvin Kamara target.
Yeah, I mean, I think I lean Olave. Obviously, my brain has been programmed for Dynasty for the last 6 months here. So to untether those things in August usually takes a minute. But right now, as we sit here and speak, I think I would lean Olave, but it's certainly a lot closer for me here because I do like what the Niners have going on. You feel at least a lot more comfortable about what the baseline is for this one season for Chris Olave. But it seems like he's going to be in San Francisco. That's the unknown, right? So I would lean slightly Olave seasonal.
Jerry?
It's close. I mean, you could flip a coin at that point. Honestly, I don't want to rely on Debo too much. He gets banged up a lot. And if Aiyuk does end up being the number one pass target on that offense, then obviously he's going to feast. I don't trust the quarterback play in New Orleans. Flip a coin. I think they're both fine.
I would rather have Olave because I'll take what I perceive to be more volume. And Aiyuk did a lot last year with a lot of efficiency. He was very efficient. And then when variance kicks in, if that efficiency drops, not say significantly, but if it drops at all, it's going to be hard for him to even repeat last year.
Right. And there's even more competition there. Like they've added Pearsall, who, they spent some capital on, and they have Cowing, who's a good slot receiver, which they really haven't had. Not that they use a ton of 11, but.
And they re-signed Juwan Jennings.
Right.
I mean, they continue to create weird packages for, so for me, it's clearly Olave because I like Rashid Shaheed, big fan, but I don't see him being target competition. So we all agree that is a good person. That is a tweet we do not agree with. So we won't go too hard on him with Dana White this week.
You know how fucking stupid you have to be to even think something like that, let alone say it publicly and act like you're fucking serious.
All right, maybe it was a little bit more harsh than I intended, but that was good, people. That was bad tweets, and but we mentioned trades because it is the last chance. Training camp right around the corner. It is the last chance to go after certain guys because if you think their stock's going to go up, that means if you wait a year or till end season, the price is going to go up. So, Casey, you are our guest. You sent a beautiful list, one of which you covered. You covered just for our patrons over at patreon.com. Remember, if you don't like you may also like podcast feed thing and you don't like commercials, we upload the show for the patrons early and ad-free on Mondays. The podcast comes out Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon. So if you want it early, commercial free, and with bonus content, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. But Casey, that said, besides that guy, who's another guy that you are targeting in your dynasty leagues?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got a long list, so I don't know how much time you have here. But first and foremost, if I went in like drop down list of highest to lowest, I'd say Zay Flowers is one of those guys who's higher up on the list there of not super expensive guys, but not, I don't think cheap guys. I think right now in our ADP, he's hanging around 5.7. That's equal to around where DLF has him. Man, Fantasy Pros might be a little higher. But a guy like Zay Flowers is a rookie, and I was coming off a rookie campaign, and I feel like not really getting as much love as maybe deserved here. 104 targets, 77 receptions, 858 yards, and 5 touchdowns. 14th in yak, 15th in yak per reception, 5th in missed targets forced. And really, what for me is in the last 5 games, 4 of the 5 of them were 20 points plus for Zay Flowers here. And I know Mark Andrews wasn't there, but Isaiah Likely stepped in and played really well. He's a pretty good tight end. And I understand Mark Andrews is going to command some target share when he gets back in there, but who else do they have really to throw the ball to anyway? Also, it's the first year of Monken's offense. We're going to see this thing take a step forward. Zay's going to be more comfortable, and more so, Lamar is going to be more comfortable in this offense. And then to cite reception perception, Flowers was 85% successful versus zone coverage. That would have been like 90% in reception perception history in the database. And that's important because a lot of teams are going to play zone against a guy like Lamar. You're not going to man up a ton. A lot of teams aren't, and turn your back to Zay or to Lamar Jackson there. So I just feel like as the system evolves, as Zay evolves, as they get more comfortable, and the ad-libbing of Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson, I feel like together of extension of play, I feel like those two guys are just so simpatico. So just that they really fit well together with when the play breaks down, doing a little extra. And I feel like we really started to see that at the end of last season. That Chiefs game, Zay was excellent. Obviously, had the stupid penalty and then fumbled on the goal line going in for the second touchdown, but was about to just come through with an absolute huge game and had already had a touchdown. So for me, Zay Flowers would be a guy that I'm kind of targeting for taking another step forward here. And I feel like the value's pretty solid right now.
Jerry, what do you think about Zay Flowers? Is he on your list, someone that you're looking to add this offseason?
I am not big into pass catchers on Baltimore. Is it because I eat narratives like they're candy and I am a sucker for that kind of drug? Absolutely. But really, is he the best skill player on that team? I mean, Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry, but he's going to be 31 years old. Who knows what that's going to turn out into? If anybody's going to get the opportunity, it's going to be Zay Flowers, and he was good enough last year. He showed exactly that he could hang in the league, and if the opportunity does grow, like Casey said, yeah, I'm fine with that. Like he's not a guy that I think has an extremely high ceiling. But if you think that you aren't going to profit off of him if you acquire him now, I think you are making a horrible mistake.
Yeah, I as you guys were discussing Lamar Jackson, I was looking to find the tweet and I couldn't find it. But a while back, I believe it was Ryan McDowell. I'm 99% sure it was Ryan McDowell tweeted out that in his 6 years as a professional quarterback, Lamar Jackson has never created a wide receiver 1 or a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy points on a given season. Does that concern you? I'll ask you a two-parter. Does that concern you? And do you think Zay Flowers has the potential to break through that ceiling?
I think so. I think we saw it in chunks of season with Hollywood over there. And it's also just, we're out of the Greg Roman era there. And I think Greg Roman's really good at ushering in guys like Lamar Jackson, but not good for the growth of guys like Lamar Jackson. And that's a big part of my argument here is like, I think some people are just looking at it as there can't be growth for Zay, growth for the system, and growth for Lamar in a bit more of a, exciting system than kind of what you knew you were getting from Greg Roman. It gets stale, and we've seen it time after time with Greg Roman. I think Greg Roman and Harbs are going to be great for these first couple of years in LA. I think that's a good culture rebuild kind of situation, but we saw it get stale in San Fran the first time. We saw it get stale again. We saw it get stale in Baltimore, and now, he's moved on, and I like what Monken did, and that was year 1. I find it crazy that we can't grow and evolve. We look at things in such a obviously historical, and all the data is great. And you know, it's definitely something to be concerned about. And if there was 3 or 4 guys there who were just monster pass catchers, maybe I would be a little more concerned. But Zay, I love the fit, the style, and kind of that he is going to be force fed some volume here, I think, moving forward.
All right, I'm pulling up some rookie rankings over at PlayerProfiler, and I want to get your a would you rather on Zay Flowers, because I think you've got to pay at least a first, if not a first plus.
I think there's a lot of people out there that would just flip the first for the first they paid last year for Zay Flowers. So it just feels like there's a lot of people who are just very on him, right? So I feel like to start off that conversation, I would go there. Like, if you have like a mid first round, any of those, if it's super flex, tight end, premium, anything after like Bowers, I'd be willing to probably trade for Zay Flowers. The Lads, the Worthies, the Brian Thomases. I'm fine with that.
Jerry, you can tell this guy's a professional. He's answering the questions before I can even because I've got the rookie wide receiver rankings. I think you're going Neighbors and Harrison over Zay no matter what. Pretty easy there. You mentioned Worthy and McConkey. I think I'm easily taking Flowers over both of those guys.
Yeah, and I love both of those guys. I really like Ladd and I really like Worthy, but I'm taking Flowers.
But there's one name in the middle, the third ranked wide receiver in this class for Player Profiler, and it's Rome Odunze. Would you rather have?
No. I think I got Rome and Neighbors are the same for me. So that's
so you're Rome, super high.
Yeah.
So if he was in this class as a rookie this year as opposed to last year, he would be easily your wide receiver 4. So you're saying there's Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, a gap, then Zay Flowers, then another gap, then Ladd, McConkey, Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman, etc.
Yeah, I would think so. And obviously the mystery box is fun, but I've seen the guy play in the league and I know he can do it. Is really what that comes down to for me, right? The longer I've been playing this game, and depending on how my build is and where I'm heading, I want a little bit more of a sure thing, especially once I get into that mid-round, late-round stuff. A lot of the times I'll be looking for the opportunity to make that move of, maybe getting off of one of these guys, especially if I'm going into a bit more of a competitive and maybe I only have one pick or something like that. Don't have a lot of I want to get the thing that I'm a little bit more sure about, that I know I can start and has even more room to grow, which is something like Zay Flowers.
All right, Jerry, I'm going to give you the last word on Zay Flowers. Anything else?
Nah, he's fine. If we're going to talk about people who are on him, I'm absolutely one of those people that's on him.
Well, I'll make you a deal. Give us a guy you're not on. You're a guy that you're excited for, a guy that you're looking to go out and acquire this Dynasty off season before training camp gets going.
Let's just say 2023 Jerry would be so mad at the man that I'm about to say, because if you want to talk about a guy who I was so on, it's George Pickens. I mean, 1,100 yards on only 60 catches. He did it with Kenny Pickett. Now he's got Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's been a perennial QB1 in Dynasty year after year after year after year. And last year he was so dreadfully terrible, and he finished as like QB 13 or something, or 14. It's an immense upgrade. Deontay Johnson is out of the picture. The path is there. I'm sorry. He was 22 and had 1,100 yards. We've got guys like Roman Wilson. George Pickens is the same age as this man, and he's got 2 years of NFL experience. So Pickens, and I hated him. I mean, I didn't hate him, but I was not aboard the hype train for sure. I think I was wrong, and I don't like to admit I'm wrong. Randy, are you a hater? I feel like Randy's a hater of George Pickens.
I'm gonna save my reaction to George Pickens at the end. I want to throw it to Casey. I want to know, you can talk about Pickens because, like you said, he was on your list, so clearly he's someone you're buying as well.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of mocking and building our own ADPs over there, and George Pickens, where he kind of filters in, we got him at 6'3" right now. On our last update, wide receiver 25, and we're in the range that he's going with guys like Addison and Ladd McConkey around him. He's like the last number one upside wide receiver that goes off the board. And I feel like some people are just, Jerry's switching his opinion, but there's a lot of people that don't want to switch their opinion on George Pickens because they were out on him. And like you said, Roman Wilson, I like Roman Wilson, but like there is no target competition over there at all. Like none. I just, you got a decent quarterback upgrade. The offensive line's gotten better. They're going to run the shit out of the ball. Pat Freiermuth might be his biggest competition for, receptions on that team. He was 18.1 yards per reception. That was number one in the league last year. 2.11 yards per route run. That was 17th, and 7th in yak per reception was 6.5. And like you mentioned, put down 1,100 yards with, Pickett and Mason Rudolph. And, just some of the stuff that he can do and the way he plays, it's just a guy that gives you that fantasy WR1 upside week in and week out, I think. And I think we're going to, just like we were talking off air about the guy who used to be his counterpart, both of those guys can have a little bit of the only thing that worries me about George Pickens is George Pickens, the head, right? That's it. He's the only thing that's going to hold George Pickens back from being an elite wide receiver in this league for years to come and a really good fantasy asset for you.
I am not rushing out to buy with both hands like you guys, but I'm not a hater.
You, he's a hateful bastard. I told you, Casey.
Yeah, I am clearly anti George Pickens, but I'm not. I mean, the worst case scenario, does he have Cortland Sutton season from last year? 60 catches for about 800. That's the worst case scenario, and like 10 touchdowns with a Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
But then does he also have potentially, because there's another guy in Pittsburgh that I think is going to be the starting quarterback by about midseason, and that's Justin Fields. And we saw Justin Fields, as limited of a quarterback as I have been proven right that he is, he was still able to force feed the crap out of Cole Kmet and DJ Moore. And I think even if we get to, and I think they should, because I think Russ is washed, but you can still get that kind of performance that you saw last year from DJ Moore. So I think the ceiling, and it feels crazy to say in an Arthur Smith offense, but I think the Pittsburgh offense is actually going to be really good. I don't know that there'll be a bell cow like the way that he used Derrick Henry in Pittsburgh, but I do think that he'll have and he was a former tight ends coach too. So I think you're spot on with Freiermuth. I'll throw him in as a bonus buy. He's a guy that I've been acquiring everywhere. I'll actually tell you about a trade because I want to talk about one of the other guys on your list. But no, Jerry, I'm not hating on George Pickens.
No, you're hating on Russell Wilson.
Well, I'm
Justin Fields of all people. You want to talk about the 2023 version of you punching the 2024 version in the face?
I tried to give Russ the benefit of the doubt. Here's all I'm going to say. And I know Coach Worship is a bit of a no-no here at Player Profiler, but I am who I am. And I believe that if he can't get it done, and he did statistically, he actually had it was kind of like Carson Wentz that last year in Indianapolis, where he had 27 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions, and they still couldn't wait to get rid of his ass. And then he just like turned to permadust. That's kind of how I feel about Russell Wilson. I feel like Sean Payton band-aided him along the way. I never thought I would be coming to the honor of one Justin Fields, but yeah, here we are on the Dynasty WarZone talking about that guy. I'll talk about my guy because I only really brought 2 to the table. He's the thumbnail because I'm the one who interacts with the awesome Brittany, and she's like, "Who do you want on the thumbnail?" I said, "Give me Jaden Reed." A guy that I am absolutely head over heels for. I know there's a lot of Christian Watson love out there on the Dynasty streets. I've heard a little Dontavian Wicks. I've even heard of Bo Melton. But I just look at the guy.
Once. You only heard of him once.
I mean, I only heard of him because someone else was talking about him. But I'm Jaden Reed guy. I believe that this is the LaFleur offense, which is the Shanahan offense, which is the McVay offense, which is essentially the West Coast offense. And I believe that out of all the receivers in Green Bay, that Jaden Reed can do the things that we saw Puka Nacua do in this offense, that we saw Justin Jefferson do in this offense, and he can do those type of things way better than those other guys. So we've seen a role where a guy can get force-fed targets, moved all over the place, line up in the slot, just all of the things. Why can't that be Jaden Reed? I know people want it to be Christian Watson. I'm never going to be a big fan of guys who have to learn how to run again. They are teaching him how to run again so that he stops pulling his hamstring. That feels problematic. You know, every time that you, and think about it, just hit pause and think about it. Every time you hear a quarterback's changing his throwing motion, every time someone's doing it doesn't matter. It never works. It never really works. Josh Allen, you are the outlier to everything. But I'm buying Jaden Reed. I'm buying this Green Bay offense. I love the division because Chicago's better. Minnesota's going to pass a ton. Detroit's really good. It's kind of going back to you guys with Pickens and Pittsburgh. Everybody's down on that offense, but I'm like, why? You got to keep up with Cincinnati. You've got to keep up with Baltimore. We think Cleveland's offense should be a little bit better if Watson can at least stay healthy. So there's 6 games a year you've got to be moving the ball around. So I like Jaden Reed for the same reasons, different player, but for the same reasons you guys like Pickens. I'll start with Jerry. What I know, because you graduated with the man, right? At the Michigan State University, you had Jerry Sinclair, Jaden Reed. You guys were like a stone's throw away from each other.
No, we were next to each other. It wasn't alphabetical order. We just got up and walked. He literally got his diploma one person before me. He had awesome diamond earrings too. It must be so nice to be a star wide receiver in a college.
Those could have been CZs. You never know.
Yeah, I guess that's true. If he was Chad Ochocinco, they would have been.
Yeah.
I am skeptical of the touchdown regression with my man, but I do think his role is going to grow in this offense pretty tremendously. So I think it's going to make up for it with that. Because if there's one thing he's good at is Jaden Reed's always open. He's good at catching contested balls. He's good at separation. And he's great with the ball in his hands. So they can give him tons of running opportunities. He got 11 last year. He got 119 yards and 2 touchdowns off of it. Those are good numbers. They're going to find ways to get him the ball. And you've got Josh Jacobs in the backfield. A lot of people are going to have to focus on him, and it's going to give a lot of those guys some extra room to work. I am worried about the touchdowns, but I'm not worried about the player. So that's a very short-sighted thing for me to say in Dynasty. I think he is absolutely on his path and established as an NFL wide receiver, and we're going to be talking about him for years to come. Randy, not bad.
All right, Casey, what about you?
So I've probably had, we make a lot of content, so you got to have, I've probably had Jaden Reed. The sells are always tougher. I've probably had Jaden Reed on some sell lists because you got to sell some people. And it comes down to just for me, and I think Jaden Reed's a good player. I think what can be, and if he does turn out to be really good, what will be the saving grace is he's going to be the guy that they manufacture touches to, the short stuff. And I think he's actually really, really good on the deep stuff as well. Obviously Christian Watson wasn't there for a chunk of that, and he will take some of that deep ball stuff away and some of the big play stuff away if he can learn how to run again. Big if there. It basically just comes down to just there is so much, there's so many mouths to feed and so many good players, because Romeo Doubs during that playoff run was locked in with Jordan Love for some of that. Then you had Kraft and Musgrave both be rookies and be really good. Christian Watson, if he can get back on the field, and then people like Wicks and Melton, and then you had Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd. So I love Jordan Reed. I love the prospect for what he can do, because he can lose guys and still be good. Jaden Reed, or Jordan Love rather, Jaden Reed, it's not about the player at all for me, because I think the player's good. It's about how the pecking order shakes out in Green Bay is the only concern that I have with Jaden Reed. And it was basically like, if I could turn that into, George Pickens somehow, I think I would rather do something like that I feel comfortable with who's going to be the guy if he turns into the guy, rather than Jaden Reed. But I don't hate, I would buy Jaden Reed. It's all about price, right? That's really all buying and selling comes down to every time. I rarely hate a player. There's been very few that I hate, but it's all about price and it's all relative. So I would say slight disagreement, but I feel where you're coming from, because I think the play was great, which sounds like, what are you talking about then? He's definitely a buy, but I worry about the ecosystem, I guess, a little bit.
two-parter for you. So our friends at Player Profiler has him as Dynasty wide receiver 27. Right in between Nico Collins and T. Higgins.
Give me both of those guys.
I don't know about Nico. I definitely agree with T. Higgins. And T. Higgins, I think he's
with Nico's contract though. I think that helps boost him over him.
You know, it's the 3-year contract. I know it was good money. I know but a lot of guys get paid when they have a rookie quarterback, and good for him. I like that we have Tank Dell ahead of him. I think that's a good read, and I'm sorry, a good range for Jaden Reed to be right there in that range. And if I can get him significantly cheaper than that, like if there's a lot of opinions out in the market, like, you know, that agrees with you guys, which is totally fine. We are not always all going to agree on everything, but if you can find someone out there that values him in, say, this range of like Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, Christian, you know, Keon Coleman, Christian Watson, these guys are all in the late 30s, early 40s, then I'm all over that. I'm all over Jaden Reed at that price, especially when I have the backing of Player Profiler. And speaking of Player Profiler, if you want something else you can rely on, try the Dynasty Deluxe.
This episode is brought to you by Player Profiler, the Dynasty Deluxe package. The rankings are the best in the industry. It includes strategy mode where you can say, hey, change the rankings to be win now. Oh, change the rankings to be productive struggle. There's also a draft planner to help to strategize where you should take players because the draft planner also includes ADP. There's a trade finder where we look up on My Fantasy League and we see trades that are done, including a particular player. Then there's a trade analyzer where you can plug in draft picks, players, and we assign a lifetime value to draft picks out 5 years. The best thing about our trade analyzer, it can't be gamed with volume. And there's mock draft data to see right now what's the market for player X versus player Y, including in the fall when very few mock drafts are happening. And our Dynasty guide, the Dynasty Dominator, would cost you $10 on Amazon, but you get it for free with Dynasty Deluxe, and you get our rookie guide for free, a $25 value. So you get all of that for $45. I mean, it's a great deal.
It is a great deal. And if you're looking for other rankings, Casey, where can they get your rankings? You've referenced your rankings and tiers several times. If the Dynasty WarZone or Player Profiler listeners would like to check out your work, where would they find it?
Yeah, you can find all that kind of stuff over on the Patreon for the FF Dynasty. We got a free one that obviously doesn't include any of the rankings, but then we got a $5 holler that you can get the rankings. We're actually in the middle of a rankings Dynasty update. There's wide receiver rankings. We actually kind of have a little rookie draft kit we tried out this season with a lot of fun rookie stats on there, a lot of good information. And then, you know, we got all sorts of good stuff over there. So make sure you go check that out. At the very least, you can get on the free Discord server.
Yeah, and then you can ask him if you don't know, because I know if you don't know what the $5 holler is or where that originated, it's worth joining for a month just to find that out for sure. We're not going to answer that one. We're not going to answer that one live on the air. So Jaden Reed was my one guy I brought to the table, but I know everybody kind of knows who Jerry
let's
and
come
I.
Back in for Jaden Reed for a second,
Okay.
Can we?
Sure. Y'all, please.
So Christian Watson in a 2 or Jaden Reed?
I got to go Christian Watson in the 2
over Jaden Reed.
Yeah, I mean, because it's the 2. I mean, the 2 I can tack on to something else. If I had to pick him in a vacuum, I'm taking Jaden Reed every single solitary time. He is the number one skill position player, not named Jordan Love, because obviously we play a ton of Superflex, that I want from Green Bay.
Yeah,
I just like targeting what I think, and I think Player Profiler has him properly valued, but I don't think the rest of the market does. So I want what I feel like are undervalued players in really good offenses.
Yeah.
Jerry, thoughts?
Not probably Jaden Reed, but also I just don't believe in Christian Watson at this point. And listen, I was in on him. He had his 4-game stretch where he was the demon of all demons that month. And over that offseason, the next offseason, I kept saying, I've seen him do it. I know he can hang. And then I just haven't seen it. So I think I'll take Jaden Reed. I think he's just more consistent. I need the number one ability is availability, or whatever that dumbass cliche is.
The best ability is availability. But yeah. I want to ask, Casey about one of his guys, because I had Casey's list. He sent me a list of names, and we're about 2/3 of the way through the show. So I want to make sure we cover Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Sure.
Because I made a trade involving him that you'll probably kill here in a couple of minutes. But I'm going to let you tell us about JSN and why he's on your buys.
Yeah, well, first of all, if I could move Jaden Reed plus a little something to get JSN, I would do that all day long. For me, it's just this comes down to there's so much lack of patience in Dynasty. There's so much redraft mentality when it comes in, and we talked about it Olave a little bit. Since he didn't come in and light the world on fire, people are automatically out. Dude, this was a guy who everybody had ranked as the #1, and it wasn't even close in this last draft. And then he comes into a situation that we already kind of knew what it was, right? There's 2 good receivers already there on a Pete Carroll run offense, which is we know is going to be run first and always has been. But we have a new regime. We have new blood over there. We have this new generation. It's going to be a Grub over there. They're going to run a ton of 11. JSN fractured his wrist in the offseason and then came in and didn't play super well to start the season. And then really down the stretch started playing well. And I saw a fantasy points, a tweet where JSN, his fantasy points per route run when outside was 0.61, which is tied for 8th in the minimum 100 routes run. I mean, you get this guy outside and he can ball a little bit. The reception perception on him was pretty good. And this guy was just a separation machine in college. I think he can run the slot and he can run outside. Tyler Lockett's, you could tell by the hairline that he's not long for the league, right? I mean, it's going back and back. And I mean, even though there's, hadn't been a ton of drop off, this is a new regime. And I think JSN, it just was completely underutilized and misused by Shane Waldron and his offense. And I think we're about to see a completely different, like that Washington offense. And I think Alabama did a great job of hiring Washington's DeBoer there, unfortunately for the rest of college football. But that was such a pro style offense where they had so much going on. And Penix was responsible for so many moving parts of that offense. And I think they're just going to, bring that right over and have some pretty good success with a really good lineup there. So for me, it's just JSN's value is so depleted, and that's what makes him really the buy for me, right? Like he's going in the 6th, 7th round on some of these drafts, and I'm always taking him because I'm okay with being patient and saying, hey, there's so much room for elevation of JSN, and there was already I like going with guys that already had a bit of a fan club, and it won't take much for those guys that fan club to reignite and go, yay, we love JSN. And all of a sudden, I think he could be one of those guys. I mean, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave both in an interview were like, he's the best receiver out of us. So I think it could be as soon as next season when he's in your tier 3 of dynasty wide receivers, when right now he's, honorable mention in some people's dynasty wide receiver rankings. So that's kind of where I'm at with JSN. Like I'm not ready to write him off. He was so good that I feel like this is a good change up for him. And you got to have some patience.
Well, before I throw this to Jerry, I don't know why you're talking about that man's lineup. He goes to the barber shop and the barber looks at him like, dude, we got to push you back, right? They get him crispy. But Jerry, what are your thoughts on JSN?
The problem with JSN has never been JSN. And I think I said that a few weeks ago when maybe the last time we did a podcast together. The problem is he's got a lot of competition, and the problem is he's got Geno Smith. Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about dynasty players who are impatient? You are looking at one. It depends what he costs.
Right.
Because I'm going to have to wait. Like I believe at JSN. I believe he is better than Garrett Wilson. I believe he is better than Chris Olave. I do. The guy was an absolute demon. Theo thinks I'm going to hate on him. I'm being nice. But I need to be patient. So I need that value acquisition cost within the trade for me to be even considerate of it. Because I think we're looking at a guy who's going to continue to get 700-800 yards. I think DK Metcalf's under contract for 2 more years. We're going to have Geno gone. We'll have a new quarterback in there most likely. And then Tyler Lockett's there for 2 more years too. So we're still looking at sort of a long build for this guy. And if it continues in that trend of those 2 years, I think the value is going to be either very stagnant or it's going to tank. So I'm not going to overspend. I'm not going to do any of that. I like the guy. At some point, there will be a time when I am sitting in front of this microphone talking to the handsome man that is Randall Young, and I will be screaming to buy JSN. That is absolutely a future podcast that will occur.
Yeah.
I am probably a year away from being on Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm not ready to call the bottom on his stock yet, but I outside of the O on the side of his helmet, I'm looking at his athletic measurables, not great, a 4.5 60, good agility score on Player Profiler, but this guy has not had a good a productive season since his sophomore year in college, in the year of our Lord 2021. So could he do that? But I'm just asking myself, based on the game that I've seen him play, and it's been mostly not good. If you want to give him the new offensive coordinator deference, I'm totally fine with that. But even though it sounds like Tyler Lockett needs his hairline pushed back, and DK Metcalf.
Listen, it is bad. If you haven't seen a picture of Tyler Lockett,
I'm gonna throw him in the Google machine here as soon as we get done with this podcast. I'll just do that. But I am looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba on Player Profiler. He's got a beautiful lineup. His hairline does not need pushback. He looking extra crisp. So good for him. Good looking young fella. But yeah, I don't get it. I think he's appropriately priced, to be honest. Player Profiler has him as wide receiver 22 in all of Dynasty. I think that's fair. One spot above his teammate DK Metcalf, and one spot behind Jordan Addison, and 2 spots behind George Pickens. So I'm going to put Casey to the test because George Pickens was his other guy. How big is the gap for you between JSN and Pickens?
So I've got, like, in my rankings here, and I think we'll be dropping the top 24 here sometime soon on the Player Profiler feed. But I've got a big tier there, and I've got JSN and George Pickens in the same tier. So I don't see a huge gap there this year. Sure, I mean, George Pickens is about 96% going to outscore JSN unless something crazy happens, but it's Dynasty. So I bake those things kind of in of how good I think JSN can be, and where the future is going to lie. And I think fair point of saying you don't think the stock has reached rock bottom. I think that's a fair counterpoint. But if all things equal, when I get in those drafts, I look at George Pickens, depending on where my build's going and how it has turned out. It's JSN if it's maybe, and you could certainly take Pickens in the production struggle sort of lineup as well. But JSN is usually the first click there for me, although maybe it should be George Pickens. So
for me, it's clearly George Pickens, because when I close my eyes and try to look into the future, I could see one of these guys having 85 catches, 1,200 yards, and 10 touchdowns, and his name's not Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's not even close. But if we look back a year from now, and those are the numbers that George Pickens puts up, even though I'm tepid on him, I'm 0% surprised. Plus, I think people forget that George Pickens is another year healthier, removed from his ACL, and I don't think we've seen the special that is George Pickens yet. But yeah, I'm not a big JSN guy. I think I think it's kind of like Chris Olave, except that I think Chris Olave is actually in a much better situation. And I think I would like Jackson Smith and Jigba more on a different team. But we also forget they re-signed Noah Fant. And the good thing is much like some of the other divisions, they got to play in the West, where you got to play the Niners, you got to play the Cardinals, you got to play the Rams. Those teams score. For me, in this Ryan Grubbs offense, the Seattle Seahawk I'd want would be DK Metcalf. I saw the deep balls that they were chucking around, and I think DK could have a fun. He's not like a guy that you want to be your wide receiver 1, but he's got like week winning upside with Ryan Grubbs calling the plays. I think they're going to chuck it to him deep a couple of times. All right, I want to save a little time at the end for some nonsense. So let's go one more, Casey. We'll get you out of here. Give us one last Dynasty buy.
All right, we can go maybe a little cheaper here, and we'll see how you guys feel about this one. Hollywood Brown's been a big buy for me, pretty much all off season, probably even dating back to, when he was struggling on the Cardinals this past season and a little injured. We can go back to 22 with Hollywood, and weeks 1 through 6, wide receiver 5, injured in week 6 in that game, and then Kyler goes out week 14 later in that season. And then this past season, we know what it was with the Cardinals, just a carousel of Dobbs and whomever. I like where the Cardinals are heading. I think the Cardinals were a surprise of like, hey, they fought like hell. They just weren't good enough to win those games. And I think they'll turn some of those stones over this year and win some of those games that they were good until the fourth quarter. I think, I like where they're heading. Obviously, that has nothing to do with Hollywood Brown. But when you go back to then the 2023 season, he was, to PlayerProfiler, 11th in unrealized air yards. His target share, he was number 27th. His deep targets, he was number 21 overall with 20. This is on a terrible Arizona team with terrible quarterback play. And then on top of that, the target quality rating was 95th, and the catchable target rate was 96th. I could see all of those numbers drastically improving. Like the situation he just went to is outstanding. If Hollywood can stay healthy, I think what they've been missing and has been a part that they've kind of changed how they run their offense in Kansas City. It's been a lot more Patrick Mahomes being a point guard, whereas we can get back to this kind of vertical style offense that they were playing and getting a little more over the top. They just had MVS was their only option to do that over these last years. And Rashi's going to miss some time. The other guys, Worthy's a rookie who I really like, but we know Andy Reid historically has brought rookies along slow. So I just feel like there's going to be so much opportunity for a guy like Hollywood Brown to come out there, and he's on a 1-year deal, so he wants to make some money, right? So I feel like he's going to come out here and do everything possible to get with Pat and dominate in the early part of the season to be top in the pecking order, obviously one below Kelsey, because that's just what it is. But this is a guy that I've been able to acquire for 25 seconds all over the place, right? And he's a guy that I have no problem sliding into my flex, or if it's a 3 wide receiver league, like you need some depth, and I feel like Hollywood's a guy that can give it to you and give it to you at a high level. I know there's a lot of, well, he hasn't done this and he hasn't done that, and it's like he's been good in chunks. He needs to put a whole thing together, but the situation couldn't get any better. And I feel like if he can't do it here, he probably won't do it anywhere. But I think it's happening.
I'm going to let Jerry wrap up the conversation on Hollywood Brown, because if anyone has a man crush on Hollywood Brown, it is Jerry Sinclair. I was going to call him Jerry Smithers Sinclair, but we're going to save that for a second. I will say this. I think Hollywood Brown will be good enough this year that he will put Xavier Worthy on this list next year. I think that even though there won't be I think there'll be flashes with Worthy. And I think that, as veteran quarterbacks tend to do, they'll lend their targets to the veteran wide receiver. And that does not say that they won't bring Xavier Worthy along, but I think we'll be talking about him the way that we're talking about Jackson Smith and Njigba and guys like that next year going into year 2. I think he'll be on a lot of buy lists. And I think Hollywood's going to be good. I think you can set the under-over on Rashee Rice suspended games at 8.5. I think I'd lean to the over, because I think it'll probably be 10 if I had to guess. But all that being said, Franz in the chat goes, what are we paying? I agree with Casey. If you're a contender and you can give what should be a contender second for him and people are buying, I'm happy to acquire him for that, because kind of the same thing with maybe without the opportunities is I said that, DK Metcalf was a wide receiver who could win you a week. So is Hollywood Brown, and you're getting him for wide receiver 3 prices. So if you like those guys, he's the perfect guy to plug into a lineup if you're a big underdog in a weekly matchup, because he can win you the week. So that's why I would advocate for Hollywood Brown. Jerry, take us home on Hollywood Brown, because I know you take Hollywood Brown home.
Yes, I do. And we do butt stuff. Here's the thing. 2023. Patrick Mahomes has the absolute most atrocious pass catchers outside of Travis Kelce that maybe the planet has ever seen in any sport. That is hyperbole a little bit, but it was awful, as we are all aware of. Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, yuck, 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 yuck. Rashee Rice was fine. He's not going to know how to act because Hollywood Brown is a talented wide receiver who can catch the ball and he can create good separation. And like Casey said, no, he has never put it together for an entire season. And we haven't seen that 12, 13, 1,400 yard season that he does it, but we do see it in chunks. We see the ability. And also, like Casey said, if he can't do it here, then I'm wrong. And I've been wrong for a couple of years. Sure. And for the love of all that is good, make fun of me for it. Lord knows that I will in 10 years be talking about how I was so in on Hollywood Brown and I was wrong. But Xavier Worthy is a rookie. And I know everybody likes to get super horny about every single rookie that comes in because there's no possible way that they can fall on their face. Quentin Johnston, like those sorts of things never happen, Corey Coleman. We definitely never, ever miss on these rookies. There's also a chance that he's just a role guy. He's just the guy that's going to catch it. And hey, we just need you to do the 9
new
route.
Juju.
The new Juju.
It's in the range of outcomes.
That's what I'm saying. So,
but we're paying seconds, contender seconds.
100%. I mean, most seconds. Once you get by like Xavier Legette, I mean, depending on my team makeup, I'd probably prefer Hollywood Brown because I'm not in on him yet. But that could backfire in the future. But I like Hollywood. I'm in on it. If he hits big. So what? And he costs. What are we talking about? We're talking about a second. Casey, if you dropped a second out of your pocket, you'd think about picking it up. You wouldn't do it every single time.
Yeah.
What kind of hurry are you in? Well, speaking of a hurry, I want to save a few minutes at the end because something glorious is happening this week. If you are a college football fan, and I know Casey is a huge college football fan, Jerry also a big college football fan. Me, I went to Ball State, guys. I did not have the luxury of being in the Clemson area or the Michigan State era and having that level of football success. But NCAA football returns to gaming the nation. I already bought it for my son. Casey, are you in on some NCAA college video games?
Sure. I'm I haven't upgraded to the PS5 yet, but this might be the thing that takes me over the edge because I did used to log a lot of NCAA and Madden hours. I would say that I haven't played a Madden in quite some time, but I will be for sure running dynasties with the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers or whomever.
The Eastern Carolina Chanticleers or Chandeliers or whatever they are.
Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, yeah.
Coastal Carolina,
Beach,
yeah.
Conway, South Carolina.
There you go. What about you, Jerry? You in? I saw a fist pump.
Oh yeah. No, I already got it. I already took the day off of work. This is a holiday, brother. I've been waiting 10 years for this. Stop it. I'm gonna be erect the whole time. I might get stretch marks. I'm gonna be so erect.
Your favorite gray sweatpants are going on.
Yeah, they're gone.
Fuck him. All we need is college football,
Yeah. So yes, I'm very excited. The team I'm going to be Michigan State at first. But whenever I decide to switch to a worse school, it's always Arkansas State. I don't know what it is about them. I always pick Arkansas State.
Is that an HBCU?
Yeah.
It very well could be.
Are they? Maybe.
I asked my son, Vinny, the infamous Vinny, who will never come on the podcast. He said, I asked him I was like, who's he going to, take to the NCAA championship? He said, Boise State. I said, why Boise State? He's like, they have blue turf.
Blue field.
That's exactly what he said. I think their college baseball team also has blue turf.
I mean, they should.
It's a gimmick at this point, right? You got to steer in to the gimmick. But I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on it. Like, we've ordered the game. I'm going to stop by the old Best Buy or whatever, pick up a controller, see if I can't, school this kid. He'll probably kill me, destroy me, and some Madden. I won't say Madden because I always played Madden, but like the engine should be basically the same.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
definitely looking forward to it, man. And I'm looking forward to the next episode of the FF Dynasty on the Player Profiler. Now, are you guys streaming live on YouTube as well?
Yeah, we'll probably start going to close to once a week with drafts, like live mocks and stuff like that. So we do some streaming, so make sure you subscribe over to the FF Dynasty channel.
Yeah, the FF Dynasty channel, guys. Again, same thing with our channel. If you're listening to this on podcast, just subscribe to both. Just delete one. Just take your little thumb and just drag it right out of your latest podcast. If you're an iPhone guy like me, and just delete it. You know what? You're taking one for the team at that point. But I'm glad Casey's on the team, and Jerry, I'm glad you're back. I looked when I sent you the link for tonight's show. We had not recorded together since the 23rd of June. I was having separation. I was having separation anxiety.
Yeah, my dog gets that too. I'll get you your thunder shirt.
Thunder buddy.
Thunder buddies.
No. Yeah, it sucks, man. I hear you.
But
we'll be
back.
And also, I'm just a terrible co-host. So Randy literally had to text me like an hour ago, and he's like, "You're showing up today, right?"
I mean, I was cool. I was totally cool if you didn't show up, because I knew Casey was already coming on. So I knew I'd have someone to talk ball with, but I'm always excited to have you on the show talking about whatever it is that we talk about. I mean, I heard the term butt stuff, gray sweatpants. I mean, all the things that you tune in for here on the Dynasty WarZone. But please check out our boy Casey. And Jay Wayne's been back. Big
Co's back. Jay Wayne's always been there.
But I thought he took a hiatus.
Big Co took a long hiatus. Yeah, Big Co's back. Big Co's around once a week. Jay Wayne's just on them ones and twos.
He's there for your pleasure.
That's right. That's right.
Jay Wayne's good people, man. Well, so are you, Casey. Please check out their Patreon. What is it one more time?
The FF Dynasty, the Patreon. You can get your free Discord or a $5 holler, as we like to say over there. And there's lots of good stuff over there. So check it out.
The same with ours. It supports the shows. It keeps us going. But on behalf of those guys, that is Casey Myers. You can follow him at the FF_Dynasty. Follow Jerry at JerrySinDWZ. Follow me at DWZ Memphis. Thanks for tuning in with us, Jerry. You want to do another one next week? Is that in the schedule?
Ooh. It is in the schedule. And just to say, I am very proud that I nailed the outro last week.
You did great.
For like 7 years. I've screwed it up every single time I've had to do it until last week.
I think it was 2-3 shows off a year. Well,
it was Matty Kiwoom. He gave me the confidence that I needed to succeed.
Yeah. That's like the inner coach. It's like, like when I set my baseball lineups, like I know which pitchers work best with which catchers, right? You just have like this camaraderie. I knew that by putting you with Matty Kiwoom, I knew the show was going to be good because there was a certain
because there was at least one person who was good at it on the show.
You said it, not me, but we'll say more stuff next week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week with more Dynasty shenanigans. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.